Welcome, Oless.
There's an old Samoan saying, "Wo vivila li fala," which means the mat is hot. Well, isn't it? You guys been sitting for a whole time, so I'll wrap this up and I'll, try to, because everyone's hungry. Okay, talofa and kirana. I will be presenting on traditional performing arts from the Cook Islands to Samoa. At the beginning of the semester, after consulting with Dr. Bautista on which organization to conduct my field work, I ultimately decided upon the Cook Islands, which is under the direction of Brigham Young University. The mission statement of this chapter is to integrate both spiritual and secular learning and to prepare students with character and integrity who can provide leadership in their families, their communities, chosen fields, and in building the kingdom of God. In the previous years, the Cook Islands Club has been a good ambassador for the Laie community. They've been offering service projects and also performed at this event called the Culture Night Festival. My other organization is the KAHUKU PASIFIKA Club, formerly known as the Samoan Club, which is sponsored by the KAHUKU High School. The mission of the KAHUKU PASIFIKA is to maintain cultures, build unity, and share their talents. Every year in April, this club co-hosts a cultural event called the Tausala Night and Manaya Night. They also participates in the KHIS annual May Night and end with a performance at the We Are Samoa Festival. The KAHUKU PASIFIKA is run by a committee of parents and school advisors to ensure that the students stay on top of their work and refrain from unwholesome activities. So you have a rough idea of where I visited. I will now show you the sites on this map of Oahu. These two sites are located on the north shore of the island. On the tip of Oahu, you can see KAHUKU, Laie, and Houla. And UH Manoa is down here at Honolulu. I live in Laie and I commute to Honolulu to school. And that's like 2 hours, 3 hours a day on bus. So basically I spend my whole day on the bus. As you can see a closer view of the map of Laie, you can see the Brigham Young University, that's where the Cook Islands Club based, and which is proximity to the Polynesian Culture Center where I work at. On the tip of Laie, it's called Laie Point, that's where the KAHUKU PASIFIKA gathered aside from school grounds. Living in Laie, where the organization are based, and working as a professional dancer at the Polynesian Culture Center, inspired me to want to share my talents that I am blessed with. I'm also blessed because I'm related to both head advisors of both clubs. I have a great passion for dancing, and through this research, I hope to transmit a part of our history to the world. As a Samoan descendant born and raised in American Sāmoa, I am richly grounded with cultural dances, and I hope that my knowledge will help enlighten the youth who are living away from their motherlands to learn about how traditional dancing can be an important aspect of our culture. Before I move into my literature review, which is my research, I wanted to mention some of the glossary terms that will frequently come up in my presentation. The kaparima is the action song, urapa'u is the drum dance, ma'ulu'ulu is an indigenous dance performed by Samoan people, and sa is a hand movement depicting everyday life activities. Okay, the art of dance and song has been a facet of communicating stories and cultures for many years. In the Pacific Islands, each society has its own unique traditional way of performing dance, with either a simple drumming of indigenous instruments or the synchronization of movements in dance. The focus of this research will be on the kaparima and urapa'u from the Cook Islands and the ma'ulu'ulu and sasa from Samoa. My first literature review book is by Dr. Mervyn McLean. He's an associate professor of ethnomusicology at the University of Auckland. He also established the archives of Maori and Pacific music. He collects different ideas from different authors and writes about it. Most of his work is old, nothing new about it. But the unique thing about his work is that he categorized each Polynesian islands, and he categorized it very well and talked about their history regarding music and dance. In his book, Weavers of the Song, he talks about the Cook Islands dancing called the Uda, means to dance or act. Pa'u means the drum. And when it puts together, the Uda Pa'u was known as traditional dance for expressing stories of certain islands, accompanied by singing and drumming. The Uda Pa'u was originated as a sacred ritual in Polynesia. When this dance is performed by females, they usually, this dance is basically the fast of the hip shaking, and also the knees knocking, like when performed by male. The kaparima, on the other hand, is another dance style. It is an action song or storytelling song whose action illustrates the words, accompany the graceful movements of the arms and hands, while the head sways back and forth. The dance was performed in strict time. According to McLean, the Cook Islands was heavily influenced by the presence of missionaries or the absence of missionaries. Mata'afa Elia Autangavia, who is a cultural and language specialist back in Samoa. He works for the Ministry of Education's focus on sports and culture. He gave a speech at the festival in Samoa addressing on the different Samoan performance dances on what is expected in traditional manner. According to Mata'afa, he symbolizes Ma'ulu'ulu as a gentle raindrop, not a rain or a storm. In other words, this dance style, its actions and movements is graceful and peaceful. This dance is mostly danced by women, but if men participate, they need to learn the exact same motions. The sasa means to strike. This type of dance portrays a Samoan way of life. For example, completing chores or making handicraft for special events or fishing. This dance is performed by both men and women. Now we all covered 4 types of dances, the Ma'ulu'ulu, Sasa from Samoa, and the Kaparima and Udapa'u from the Cook Islands. These dances have their own indigenous ties to their lands. So to me, I consider it as traditional dancing. Movements and characteristics of 3 Samoan dance types called Ma'ulu'ulu, Sasa, and Tawalunga by Jennifer RADAKOVICH. This thesis paper was submitted to the University of Hawaii for her Masters of Arts in Dance. She went to American Samoa to observe 3 main groups in Samoa and to see how would they perform these different types of dances. According to RADAKOVICH, formation is the key in performing Ma'ulu'ulu, and each songs were sung match accordingly to the motions. When performing the Ma'ulu'ulu, she noticed that this special group, she noticed that they tend to nod their heads to transition from motions to motions. For my take on this, nodding to me is to appreciate or welcome people. Like you nod, yeah, you're welcome in here. And to make your guests feel comfortable. The other characteristic that she noticed is the se'e. The se'e is a traditional motion to show a smooth road or a paved way to success, meaning that everything will be fine. The road is smooth. And bending is important because it shows humility. For For Sasa, it is an energetic form of traditional Samoan dance. She noticed how it brings their organization together and it shows the spirit of happiness and unity. Mostly the Sasa is performed when sitting down, and your upper body is mostly doing the work. This article is entitled Samoan Dance by Tamara Warda. She is a writer and founding director of a nonprofit arts organization. She writes of Samoan dance through her experience as a dance company director. From her experience, she noted that the Samoans believe that there are three aspects of life, which is faith, family, and music, which are always reflected in their dancing. To add on to her article, dance is not just a form of entertainment to me. It is the aspects of our culture. In Samoa, faith, for example, the Ma'ulu'ulu can be performed as a way to worship gods to worship gods in Samoa. Family, the Sasa and Ma'ulu'ulu can be performed as after a bestowing of chief titles or at an awa ceremony. These dances holds together the sacredness of these events. This book by Dr. Alexia, she works at the Social and Political Science Department at the University of Melbourne. In her book, Dancing from the Heart, these are some of the key themes that she mentioned. She talks about the older generation range from 45 going up, and the younger generation range from 45 below. For the older folks, they see the misuse of traditional dancing, like the kaparima and urapa'u, as a way of making money in the tourism industry. However, the youth look at tourism as a way of keeping their cultures alive, or a way of learning their culture. She also talks about how religion interferes with some aspects of the culture. For example, I'm a member of the LDS Church, and we consider our body as a temple. We cannot just open our shirts in public. Even in traditional performance, we cannot. The older folks in the Cook Islands, it's the same thing. If you open your shirt in public, if you add a shirt in a traditional performance, they consider it as a contemporary. No matter how the motions are traditional, no matter how it is the way they perform, if you add, something like a t-shirt, a global, they still consider it as a contemporary. In the Cook Islands, they consider the influence of missionary as a contemporary methods. Gender, she also talks about the over-sexualized of females by the way they wear their costumes. And she also mentioned the third gender, which is transgender. She says that they play an important role in combining what's local and global performances. And they mash it and put them together, and we see it as a new update of kaparima or the urapa'u. I've interviewed Dr. Laualua Simanu Klutz. She is an assistant professor at UH Manoa, Department of Indo-Pacific Languages and Literature. She talks about traditional dance is a way of life, which I mentioned in one of my literature review. She says that the past doesn't define traditional like how many other people would say that traditional is olden ways. Traditional lives in us. No matter what time frame, traditional is in us. She also mentioned, for the Sasa, she mentioned that it is a depiction of the daily life in Samoa. And that is what really life is about, like fishing and weaving or handicraft. She mentioned about seeing it at PCC, at the Polynesian Culture Center, but it wasn't clear. Like these motions are mostly like shortcuts So she doesn't view it as traditional. She views it as a contemporary art, which is not bad. She also mentioned for the We Are Samoa that these high school performed at the Polynesian Culture Center. She looks at it as a contemporary form because they add like hip hop. They add hip hop motions in their routines. And then she also mentioned about this third gender, the transgender. She mentioned how, sorry, I have to go back. I have to, refrain from it there. She mentioned a really important point of these traditions. She said, in order for these traditions to survive, the dances need to change the context and message, and that's where contemporary comes in. So this new dance type, whatever you add into these traditional dancing, it's a way of, it's adapting to new styles or new forms, and that's where contemporary comes in. And then she mentioned this third gender is, she said that the third gender she mentioned the third gender as having a lot of influence in this evolution. She looks at them as the keepers of cultures, especially in their studies, because these transgender, they're well respected in Samoa because of their, not only their roles in Samoa, but their education-wise. I've also interviewed Kiara Laie. She talks about her upbringing and how her family accept her for who she is. She talks about, she was born in American Samoa, but she moves back and forth from American Samoa to Hawaii. She talks about how when she was in school in Kapolei, her peers looked at her as someone different, They stigmatize her because she looks different. You're not, she looks different. But in Samoa, Kiara Laie is well respected because of her knowledge in traditional dancing. And in Samoa, it's not, it's not how you look, but is your role that you play in the community that they look at. In order for me to go in this research, trying to find out about these two totally different type of dances, people keep on asking me, why are you, comparing Samoa, from the Cook Islands? Most of people would write about the Cook Islands and Tahiti because they're really similar dances. But after talking to my cousins about this research, just Talanoa method, just simple conversation would bring up like new ideas. And this was one of the methods that I used in trying to brainstorming this research. The other method is observation. I attended one of their practices and just sitting there and observe these young people, because these two groups are the high school, they're teens, but the Brigham Young University, they're youth, adults. So it's very different, two different communities. So I was sitting and observing how these younger generation would, wanted to learn about their culture, wanted to learn about these dances because it's exciting. They think that it's really, fun to join these, programs and try to learn about their dances. And yeah. And as I mentioned before about interview, this is one of the methods that I use to gather my information while putting this research together. For KAHUKU PASIFIKA, I feel like I was an insider and outsider at the same time. Because I'm Samoan, so I feel like I was an insider, and I speak fluent Samoan, and Samoan is my first language. And I'm also related to the head advisor, so I feel like I was an insider. But in the Samoan culture, you have to respect your elders. And this committee of parents, they're like very well, like opinionated with everything. You say this and you're like, who are you? Yeah. So I feel like I was an outsider because I'm young. For the Cook Islands Club, I was an outsider because I'm not Rarotongan and I don't speak Cook Islands Maori. But even though my cousin is a head advisor, she's married to a Cook Islander. So basically, I refer back to the husband because he's Cook Islander and he plays a really important role in this club or community. For my capstone activity, I was sent out. I completed 22.5 hours at the KAHUKU PASIFIKA in just helping in creating costumes. And my knowledge in traditional dancing, helps me to come up with these new ideas, the way from a young person's perspective, they want that from me because they think it's fresh. So I'm like, yeah, sure, I'll just help out with creating costumes. And they asked, and I was sent out to help them choreograph dance routines. And it was hard for them, they're like, oh, you don't know how to dance. Even though you work at the Polynesian Culture Center, everyone in Laie, they all work at the Polynesian Culture Center. So I'm like, okay, it's fine. And for the Cook Islands Club, I completed 22.5 hours of field work in helping creating costumes. They assigned me to choreograph some of their dances, but that didn't happen because one of the kumus or one of the leaders didn't even agree of me being an outsider would just come in and teach them the kaparime and urapa'o. So I participated, so I just sit there and learn these dances, and it's really amazing how these dances are being choreographed. These are really unique dances and they're similar too. For protocols to consider if you go out and do your research or after completing your research, just keep in mind the relationship that you make with these community. These relationships are very important because you can go back to them and ask them about something that you need, and you need to keep this bond close because it's important. And the other protocol and the other principle is respect. You need to respect your elders. You need to respect the community. You ask them what they need, and you need to, even if you disagree with it, you need to show them respect by accepting it and accepting what they need and try to offer your service. For the event, I participated in the Tausala night event. This event where it's like a pageant, it's a really big thing in Laie. So in order for me to actually choreograph this young group, these teens, I don't know if they set it up, but they just, they assigned me a girl to help, to teach her to teach her tawalunga. But the girl, she's half Hawaiian, half Samoan. She doesn't know how to dance, so it was really hard for me. It was hard for me trying to teach her. She's like uncoordinated person I've ever seen. Yeah. But that's not the point here. Okay, so this research, I was trying to use the ma'ulu'ulu and sasa to try to combine it to come up with a really unique traditional form of dance that I believe, from my own point of view, because it's my research, so this traditional dance to me was very unique. So she went and she competed and she came first runner-up out of 7 girls. That's amazing. Yeah, and to me that's how I know I earned my place in this community. And then they trust me. They're like, oh yeah, the girl won first runner-up. So I feel like that was part of my maneuvering my way into this community, and that was very important to me. The BYUH Culture Night is another big event in Oahu because, as you all know, or if you're familiar or not familiar with the BYUH, it is a very diverse campus. It's under the LDS Church, and all these people from the islands, and that's the focus of this school, is to accept indigenous people from Pacific Islander. And this culture night, they showcase their cultures, they showcase their dances, and I was able to participate, but through the Cook Islands Club, and it was a successful event, and I learned a lot from just participating or just observing and watch them perform. It was really good. But in previous years, I've been participating in this event still under the Cook Islands Club. So what I learned from this research is the importance of community-based research. My mindset of going into these two different organization was all for traditional dancing, because I just discovered this passion when I moved to Hawaii about traditional dancing. I love to dance, but not traditional, like not Samoan or even Cook Island dance. But going into these two organizations, I was trying to offer them, like what I know about traditional, but their view that, yeah, you're just learning about traditional, you don't know anything about traditional dancing. So I was surprised how these young teens and these youth in Hawaii would interest in learning their cultures, interest in learning these types of dances, because they believe this is the way into, sorry, I'm blank, but yeah, it's important. So after doing my field research, I wasn't really lenient towards contemporary. I don't know why. I just don't like contemporary, and people nowadays know what is contemporary to you, what is traditional. It all depends on the person, all depends on your point of view, all depends on what you believe in, and that's, that was me. I believe in traditional dancing, and I have so much passion in it. That's like, I cannot accept contemporary like coming in. I feel like it's like polluting our traditional dancing. So I discovered and I've learned that contemporary and traditional dancing are both unique in their own ways. Working at the Polynesian Culture Center and having all these people from all over the place that come and work at the Polynesian Culture Center, I feel like this is the nest. This is the nest where they mend cultures, where they mend like these type of dances, because these dances ties to their own indigenous places. And I feel like working there, every time they upgrade a show, they upgrade traditional dancing, they upgrade contemporary dancing, and I feel like this is the nest. From one of an article I read about PCC, they didn't really mention like something bad about PCC, but they wanted to. PCC is a Polynesian Culture Center. Yeah, they mentioned something about they wanted to establish a village in the Polynesian Culture Center, the Cook Islands, but the head of the Polynesian, the president at that time, didn't agree with it because he feels like Tahiti and the Cook Islands have the same exact dancing styles. So they didn't want to do that. They didn't want to honor their request, because this community in Laie, the Cook Islands community, is growing, and it's something that they should appreciate and at least have a village for these people. The other thing that I learned from this research is how the mixture of contemporary and traditional dancing, how these advisors that I'm related to, they're both alumni of BYU Hawaii, and they were working at the Polynesian Culture Center. So this type of dancing that they have, I've learned that they all have the same style, in style of how they do the sasa, or in styles of how they complete the ma'ululu. They all have different versions of it, or they all have the same version of how to do it, because they've been exploited to the Polynesian Culture Center. They've been working there for a long time, so they carry this out to their homelands. Even in Samoa, they carry this type of dance, even in the Cook Islands, because they've been nurtured in this center. I encourage each and every one of you to get to know your community on both professional and personal levels. Like,
Having displaced no